Hey folks, welcome in on this Wednesday. Got an update for you on the potential for a major winter storm, potentially a couple rounds of winter weather next week, all associated with a major blast of Arctic air on the way. And trust me, you're going to want to be prepared for this one. So if you're new to the channel, welcome. My name is Gerald. I'm a meteorology major at the University of North Carolina, Charlotte. And if you haven't already, go ahead, like the video, subscribe, and hit that bell for the latest notifications. That'll make sure you're up to date with the latest model guidance and a breakdown of that guidance as we continue what is shaping up to be a very active 2025, as we've already seen multiple major winter storms. Also, go ahead, comment, let me know where you're watching from and what you want to see out of this very cold pattern. Let me know if you're a fan of the snow or if you are ready to go ahead and skip to spring. All right, folks, with that said, let's go ahead and jump on into the latest data. Now, starting with satellite imagery, not a lot going on, but we do have a little bit of a clipper system on the way for portions of the Midwest and the Northeast. That's this little piece of energy that is beginning to dive down, and that will bring some snow to Wisconsin, Michigan, and much of the Northeast over the next day or so. Now, other than that, it's really just a waiting game for our big cold air mass to begin to dive southward and bring that potential wintry weather. Now, another thing I do want to point out on this water vapor loop that we're looking at is notice our southern jet stream. See how active it is? That's going to be very important for the forecast next week. A very active southern jet combined with that potential, I won't even say potential, I'll say likely Arctic air outbreak. That is definitely going to set the stage for what could be a very icy or snowy mess for areas quite far south. So that's kind of the combination of those two that we'll be watching for that potential of winter weather. Now, taking a look at radar imagery on this Wednesday, not a lot right now, but we do have some snow up into the Midwest, into the Northeast. What has been a very active lake effect season continues into the Tug Hill, the Finger Lakes, into areas around Erie, even into Ontario here near London, Canada, Stratford, and just kind of south there of Toronto, seeing some of that snow. The state of Michigan getting in on some good lake effect snow. And other than that, folks, and kind of you can see the beginning of this clipper developing, not a whole lot going on. We do have some rain down into the Texas Gulf Coast, down into southern Louisiana, and that will likely continue eastbound through much of the Gulf Coast into this evening and probably even lingering into tomorrow as well. Now, these are our current alerts right now, and you'll notice really not a whole lot happening out there. We do have some winter weather advisories up into the Northeast. We have even winter storm watches up for the mountains of West Virginia and extreme western Maryland, and even into portion of the Allegheny country of Pennsylvania there. And that is due to that clipper system that once again will bring some snow. But other than that, folks, it's all quiet for now. But go ahead and enjoy it because it will not last forever. Trust me. Now, I do briefly want to go ahead and break down this clipper system for you, give you the latest timing on that and those potential snowfall totals. And then we'll dive right into that Arctic outbreak and the potential for some snow next week. All right, here we go. This is this afternoon, right around noon. You'll notice radar's still relatively quiet, but we'll look back towards Minnesota, Wisconsin, and Michigan as we go through the evening, getting into about that 5-6 o'clock time frame, seeing some of those snow showers begin to develop through Minneapolis, up through even portions of the UP of Michigan. I think much of the state of Wisconsin going to pick up on these snow showers, and that will continue to work slowly, or really quickly, I should say, south and east across the area. And by the time we get to about 1 a.m., midnight tonight, those snow showers working through Chicago, Gary, Indiana, up through the western shores of the kind of thumb of Michigan there, and still seeing some of those snow showers lingering through Milwaukee, Green Bay, and much of eastern Wisconsin. Now, we get later into the overnight, and about the time we're waking up tomorrow, this continues pushing east into Ohio. That snow beginning into West Virginia, even the Pittsburgh area, likely to see some snow out of this for your Thursday morning. And by the time we get into Thursday afternoon, you'll notice that storm system continuing to bring some of those snow showers to the region of the interior Northeast, portions of the Ohio Valley, and into the Great Lakes as well by Thursday afternoon and evening. And that'll continue to work towards the I-95 corridor. In fact, cannot rule out some light snow in New York, Philly, and much of New Jersey here into Connecticut. This will not be a big event, but this evening, right around rush hour commute, some flurries or even light snow showers could be flying around here along the I-95 corridor. We'll say from DC northbound up through Boston, and then we get through the overnight, and that begins to clear on out That would be the overnight of tomorrow and into Friday. So not a big event by any means, but definitely worth mentioning. And if we take a look at some of these potential snow totals, again, not a big deal by any means, but I do think we'll have some enhanced totals along those lake-enhanced areas of western Michigan, 1 to 3 inches. Isolated spots getting to that 3 to 5 range going to be possible as well. Everyone else, though, through Wisconsin into Indiana, probably one of those dusting to an inch plus events. Some of you will get a dusting, some of you will luck out, or maybe not so lucky if you're not a snow fan, and get maybe a little bit more than an inch. Very possible out of this event. As for the Northeast, again, not a huge event by any means. Most of that snow into the interior through Erie, and then into the Tug Hill, where we're getting a mix of that lake effect snow and that clipper, also down into the mountains of West Virginia. But you'll even notice a couple of these National Weather Service offices adding a little bit of snow near a dusting along the I-95 corridor. Like I said, not a big event, but definitely could see some flakes flying around, and definitely could even try to accumulate in some isolated places. So we'll definitely be watching for that with this quick hitting storm system. All right, let's go ahead and get into the fun, or the not so fun. Sorry, I just hit 5 different buttons on you there. But let's start talking about this pattern change. And I do think it is something worth noting and worth watching, and it's going to be a pretty big deal for somebody. So let's go ahead, time it out for you. This is this afternoon, Wednesday afternoon. These are our 500 millibar height anomalies. And just to kind of refresh you if you're new to the channel, or if this hasn't been explained to you before, or you just need a refresher, I oftentimes need that as well. Basically, the blue areas you see are troughing or pockets of cold air. The orange areas or red areas that you see, those are areas of ridging or warmer areas of air. So obviously what you want for snow is you want a big area of blue, and then you need some energy to overlap with that blue. And the question is, well, will that happen? And if it does, where and when? And that's what I'm going to try to answer for you through this next segment. So as we go through later this week, you'll notice it kind of gets a little warm actually in the central part of the country. This is Friday morning. You'll notice a little piece of ridging breaking off here, getting through the Mississippi Valley, the Ohio Valley, and that'll help warm us up a little bit, and it'll start to feel a little bit more like, maybe not spring, but it'll definitely be warmer compared to what we're seeing now. But don't get too excited. That's going to be kind of the false hope that Mother Nature often gives, because by the time we get to this time frame, this is Saturday morning and then into Sunday morning. Check this out, folks. This is a full-blown Arctic outbreak of air pushing southward with origins all the way back to the Arctic and Siberia. So this is coming right out of the freezer. Imagine somebody opened the freezer door and then blew all the air down in your face. That's exactly what this is going to feel like as that air mass builds and stays active for a while. This is all the way into next Monday, the 20th. Into the 21st, the 22nd, and then I think by the time we get to about the 25th, the 26th here, that's when the pattern will change back and will be cold in the west, and then you'll see what we call notoriously as the southeast ridge beginning to build back in, and that should warm us up towards the end of the month. But remember, it is the 15th today, so we've got a way to go before we get to this time frame, about 10 days or so. We'll call it maybe 7 days from this weekend through the next weekend of that potential for a snowy, wintry pattern. So then that begs the question, who sees snow, who sees ice, who sees absolutely nothing but cold air? And that's what we're going to kind of talk about now. Now, obviously, I told you it's going to be cold, but that could be relative. 32 degrees might be cold to me, and it might be warm to you. So exactly how cold are we talking? Let's start by looking at an anomaly map. This shows us the departure from normal. So if your normal high is 50 degrees in January, and then the map says -10, that means it's forecasting your temperature to be 40 degrees. So this is Friday afternoon. You'll notice this is that little warm up I was telling you about. It's getting warmer into the central part of the country through the Mississippi Valley, the Ohio Valley, and even well up into Canada. But like I said, don't get too excited. It's going to change. Although I will add, if you have plans, definitely try to do them outside on Friday. Enjoy it. Get some vitamin D while we have it. Obviously, temperature doesn't change the sun's angle, but nonetheless, it might feel a little bit more rejuvenating to be out there in those warmer temperatures. Then comes the weekend. This is Saturday afternoon, and you can see that Arctic front pushing south and eastbound with well below average temperatures into the Rockies, into the plains, and by the time we get into Sunday, this is Sunday afternoon, the 19th, just a full-blown Arctic invasion of the lower 48. We've got temperatures near 30 and 40 degrees below what they should be this time of year back into Montana, Wyoming, the Dakotas, and all of that cold air will continue to sink south and east. And by the time we get to early next week, this is about Monday afternoon, We're all locked in the freezer from Florida up through Maine, all the way back really through basically the entire lower 48. Only place on this map that's maybe not even above average, but more average is on the West Coast. And even then, your average temperature in January isn't all that pleasant either. So very cold air. And you get the idea here. It hangs around for a while, stays cold, and then finally some signs around the 25th, 26th that we break the pattern and it goes cold back out west and then warms up in the east. But that leaves a big window for the potential that precipitation could try to overlap with that cold air. Now, obviously, the anomalies are great. That tells us, what kind of air mass we're dealing with. But how cold is cold? That's still the question. Well, these are Monday afternoon high temperatures projected by our latest European model. And we've got single-digit highs into portions of Iowa, Nebraska, South Dakota, highs below zero into North Dakota, Minnesota, Montana, widespread 20s for a high into the Ohio Valley. We're struggling to crack freezing into the Tennessee River Valley. So overall, a very cold air mass. I'll move this further ahead into time, and you'll notice those cold temperatures even overtaking the Carolinas by Tuesday afternoon. We've got highs only in the 30s for Columbia, South Carolina, Atlanta, Birmingham, Montgomery, Jackson. I mean, folks, this model's saying Shreveport, Louisiana might not crack freezing on Tuesday afternoon. So you get the idea, quite cold and quite far south. Now, what about low temperatures? That will be equally as important here. Low temperatures likely in the below zero range for much of the Midwest, the Ohio Valley hovering in the single digits through Tennessee, Arkansas, Oklahoma down into the teens and flirting with single digits in portions of the Carolinas, down into North Alabama, northern Mississippi, North Georgia, and the freezing line all the way down to the Gulf Coast. Check this out. Destin, Pensacola, Mobile, Pascagoula down into the upper 20s and low 30s for low temperatures come Tuesday morning of next week. So you get the idea. Cold air will not be a problem with this pattern if you're a snow lover. Now, let's go ahead and time it out for you. And before we get to the crazy fun storm stuff about a week or so from now, let's talk about the potential this weekend for a little bit of wintry weather. So as this big Arctic push is moving through, it is going to likely fire off a bit of a storm system with some rain and snow. So here we go. This is Saturday afternoon. Notice a little bit of snow into the northeast, specifically the interior northeast. Rain to the south of there through the Carolinas, potentially some snow into the mountains of North Carolina, Tennessee, and the Virginias, but mostly a rain event for the south. So you're seeing this and you're thinking, all right, what are we doing here? Where's this snow that I was promised? Well, hold your horses a little bit. We've got a little bit longer to go. Here we go. That moves on through. And then we are getting the signs in some of our models of a secondary area of energy kind of rotating around this air mass. So this is Sunday morning, the 19th, so not far from now. You see these these big blue lines. These are those height values. So earlier, whenever I showed you the map that had the big blue blob that you might remember from earlier on in the video, well, that's what this is. This is that cold air. It's settling in place now. And what's happening is a little piece of energy is trying to develop along that. This is the European from yesterday evening. In fact, you know what? I think we can move it to maybe this morning's run, and I have even newer model data for you. So look at that. That's even better. All right, so same idea here. Yeah, we've got that piece of energy developing likely somewhere near the Carolinas by Sunday morning. And what is happening is that's throwing enough precipitation back into that Arctic boundary that we're seeing some snow into the mountains of Virginia, North Carolina, portions of Kentucky, and then this tries riding up the coast and attempts to become a little bit of an I-95 winter weather event. So I know we've got plenty of snow-starved people from Philly up through Boston. Trust me, I hear you. I read the comments. Well, I think Sunday into Monday, we could have that potential that maybe we add a little bit of snow to the equation. Now, right now, this doesn't look like a big storm. It looks like one of those classic 3 to 5 inch events, but it's too soon to talk about exact totals, exact locations. Just know I'm watching this for Sunday, and the model's been pretty consistent on that idea there of a bit of a winter weather event working up the I-95 corridor to end out the weekend. Now, what are the chances of that actually happening? It's great the model shows it. What about the ensembles, though? And if you know me well enough and you watch the channel at all, you know I'm a big fan of ensembles. I think they're a great tool for forecasting. So let's go ahead and take a look at it. All right, so this is this weekend. You'll notice snow chances kind of firing up with that initial push of Arctic air up into the interior Northeast, the Great Lakes, even down into the Smokies, potentially getting a little bit of snow by Saturday and Sunday. Then we get kind of that secondary burst of snow potential. This is that I-95 potential winter weather event here. We've got pretty high snow chances in West Virginia. We're running about a 30 to 40% shot of accumulating snow from Philly into northern Jersey, New York City, Bridgeport, Hartford, up into the Boston area, and even back into the mountains of Massachusetts. So definitely a solid signal here. Just the question will be, how strong is the energy? How far, out to sea or close to the coast is it? Still a lot of question marks to kind of answer there, but I am feeling pretty confident that we could get something by Sunday evening. So that'll be the first little system to watch. Then comes the fun stuff for my friends in the South, including myself, here in Charlotte, North Carolina, and trust me, I'm pulling for this pattern as much as the rest of you. It's an interesting setup, and it's a favorable setup for some sort of southern winter storm. Now, when I say southern, that could be Texas, that could be the Carolinas, that could be Alabama, Mississippi, basically everyone. In fact, I'll go ahead and draw on the map here. I haven't done much of that. Basically, everyone in this area is still in play for the potential of some sort of southern winter weather event. In fact, I would even argue the Northeast is still in play. So right into this region, that's where we're watching for the potential of a winter storm. Now, that could be ice, that could be snow, that could be both. That's going to be a big question to answer by the time we get there. But let's go ahead and start with the initial setup. So this is the European model. This is Sunday evening. So here's that little piece of energy bringing snow to the Northeast that the model is projecting. But what we're going to be looking at is this energy back out west. We've got some troughing beginning to develop back near California. And I'm going to go ahead and circle this for you. And I'm going to show you some other models at the exact same time. That is the beginning of whatever storm would likely form. So this is the European. This is our UK Met model, or our model that's kind of brought up in the United Kingdom there, shows the same piece of energy. The ICON model, or our German model, showing the same piece of energy as well. And then let me show you the GFS. A little different on the GFS, in fact, quite different. Our piece of energy is more bottled up here into Idaho, and then you see this random little bowling ball out into the Pacific. So a little different on the GFS, and the Canadian, probably a little bit closer to the European here. So you get the idea. Most of our models have the same kind of setup here to start it off this weekend. Then the question becomes, how do they evolve it? Do they evolve it the same way that would produce a big storm? So let's start with the European. Let's look at this energy. Again, here it is back near California. This is late this weekend into early next week. That begins to dive into the four corners and kind of get strung out a little bit. So right here, you're looking and you're saying, all right, well, I see a huge piece of energy from Texas all the way to the Carolinas and back. Well, this is partially that Arctic air mass. It's pushing south and kind of creating a little bit of vorticity along this big area. But what we need to watch for is back here near Baja California. This piece of energy, or this section of that energy, can it kind of break off and spin off into its own piece? And I think that's something that is shaping up to be a pretty likely scenario in the model. So you'll see that here on the European. Notice how that piece of energy breaks off, and then we get a reinforcing shot of energy out of the north that comes down and scoops it up. In fact, very similar to last week's storm that we had. The difference this time is there's even more cold air, and the energy is even stronger than what we had last week. So that's why we've got big potential with this one. And you can see that on the European. It gets scooped up by next Wednesday into Thursday, and then eventually the whole thing kind of gets slungshot eastbound by about 10 or so days from now. So you're thinking, all right, well, yesterday you were telling me Monday, Tuesday. Now we're talking about next Saturday. Well, it's a little more complicated than that. So we get to Monday, Tuesday. We've got this big strung out piece of energy, like I mentioned, but we're getting all sorts of smaller pieces of energy to kind of rotate around this. So that is another aspect of this. There's a big window here for winter weather potential, really starting next Monday through next Saturday or so, I would say, is going to be the time frame that we're watching. So it could be more than one storm, folks. It could be a smaller event, and then a smaller event, and then a bigger event. It could be a small event, a big event, a small event. And that's kind of what we need to watch with this pattern. Now, what about the GFS? Same time frame, starts completely different. It has this little very feisty area of vorticity just off the coast of California. The other models aren't really picking up on that, so we'll see kind of what happens there, but very interesting to see nonetheless. That gets shot out towards Texas, though. That is a big piece of energy. And what this causes is a sooner winter weather event. This would start kind of Monday, Tuesday, before our bigger piece of energy behind it settles in, like the European suggested. So that little piece, I'll kind of bring it back a little bit, see how it slingshots from Baja California through Texas and then through the Mid-South. That could produce some winter weather on its own. And then the bigger piece of energy behind it kind of goes the same way the European suggested, breaking off back towards Baja California later next week, more like Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and then gets kind of slung shot east eventually once we get closer to the 10-day time frame. So that's the big question mark. How does the energy break off back there? How does it move east? When does it do it? How strong is it? A lot of question marks, but I'll tell you, the models look quite favorable. So this is the European operational run from yesterday, or from this evening, I should say. So I guess technically overnight yesterday, but really more this morning. And we'll time this out. So this is the little Sunday, Monday system into the Northeast, just to give you a time frame. This is when we're starting. This is the evening of the 19th going into the 20th. All right, here we go. So you see that energy developing out into the Rockies, Colorado, New Mexico, and then into Texas. And we get enough lift Tuesday morning, even without the bigger piece of energy. Like I said, smaller pieces kind of rotating around this Arctic air mass. We've got an icy, snowy mess from Houston into much of South Texas through Louisiana by Tuesday morning. We get to Tuesday afternoon. We've got a nice little band of snow and ice from southern Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia, even into the low country of South Carolina on this model Tuesday evening. And then it kind of just fizzles out. So that would still be an impactful storm, folks. And for areas very far south that really just don't get winter weather, even if it doesn't look like this big explosion of precipitation. Then comes the main piece of energy, and you'll notice here's another round of winter weather. Now, this storm kind of cuts up a little bit more. We get snow back to Texas, Arkansas. We get more rain into the Carolinas, and then we get a big icy, snowy mess into the Northeast right around 10 or so days from now. So that's the European run. What about the GFS run? Well, we'll start it out here. Same general thinking. We get that initial push of winter precipitation. This would be a Tuesday evening into Texas, Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama. That pushes into Georgia, the Carolinas. We get a nice snowstorm for Charlotte, even back into Fayetteville, Greenville, North Carolina, Raleigh, an icy mess to the south of there. And the GFS just kind of keeps on bringing wave after wave from, let's back it up. This is Tuesday afternoon all the way through about Thursday afternoon. It's wave of small storm, small storm, small storm, or small energy, small energy, small energy is what the GFS is showing, and then gets that bigger storm potential at the same time frame the European has, maybe a little bit later as that rides through the south well on down the road. So again, just to reiterate, the question isn't, will there be cold air? Will there be a storm system? Well, I guess technically those are the questions, but the bigger question is, how do they overlap? What is the timing difference between the two and the strength of the energy that would produce our storm? That is what we need to figure out, and still a lot of question marks. But if you're in the South and you're scared, you're saying, all right, well, the models aren't fully agreeing and I'm not buying it. Well, maybe this will, lighten your concern just a little bit. These are the ensembles from the European. We'll start with ice potential. This is the chance of appreciable accretion of freezing rain, or about 1/10 of an inch or so of freezing rain QPF. So this would be a pretty significant amount of icing. What is the chances of that happening? Well, look at this explosion of chances from Texas, and I mean deep South Texas, Houston into Baton Rouge, back into Jackson, Mississippi, Montgomery, southern Georgia, the low country of South Carolina. Folks, the models here are saying you've got a better shot of a significant ice storm than you don't have through the low country of South Carolina, near Savannah, Beaufort, back towards Charleston. You can see those ice chances quite high in that region. This would be Tuesday into Wednesday, that area, and then even rides up the east a little bit through the Carolinas and tries to clip portions of Virginia. So, that's pretty crazy agreement for about a week out. What about snow? That's what people obviously want. You want that over the ice, trust me included. Well, what are the chances of at least 1 inch of snow accumulating? We'll start with the European ensembles once more. Here we go. Starting about Tuesday, a big explosion of the chance of that happening through Louisiana, back into areas south of Dallas, through East Texas, north of Houston, running about a 40 to 50% chance of accumulating snow up to 1 inch. And then the chances increase big into the Carolinas. Check this out. Back down near Wilmington and Jacksonville, North Carolina, about a 50% chance of snow at least or of at least an inch of snow accumulating by next Tuesday or Wednesday. So that's not nothing, folks. That's very impressive for the ensembles or the models to show at this time frame. And I wouldn't say we've trended down at all. I would say we're kind of still in a bit of a sideways mode. It's gone up a little, down a little. It's just kind of staying consistent. So that's not a bad thing at all. In fact, it's probably better that we keep this storm kind of down into the south a little bit now than getting a big storm on the models, because oftentimes that kind of trends north a little bit the last second. And this is a really good place to be if you're a snow lover in the south. And you can see that snow chances also try to get up into the northeast a little bit. The first storm signal, though, I will mention, I think is going to be more of a southern slider. By Tuesday, Wednesday, I think the northeast is kind of going to struggle to get anything out of that one. Then, though, that bigger piece of energy around the 24th, 25th or so, you can see developing here. That one could be a northeast system, right around this time frame. You see higher in snow chances about 10 days or so from now there through the northeast. So like I said, a lot of energy, a lot of moving parts here. Final map I'll show you, GFS chances of accumulating snowfall. And it's the same time frame, same areas. Tuesday into Wednesday down through Texas, Louisiana. Now, not as high of a percentage on this model, but you kind of average it all out, and it's still a good chance of some snow down here. Potentially a pretty big snowstorm as well. I will say the ceiling on this one is a lot higher than the last storm for areas further south, including Houston, Shreveport, back down into maybe Baton Rouge, Jackson, Alabama, or Jackson, Mississippi, into Alabama, Georgia, and then into the Carolinas. And you can also see that kind of secondary storm signal right into this time frame about 10 days from now that favors the northeast a little bit more than this first time frame. Alrighty, folks, what a gauntlet, what a lot to talk about, and it's going to stay that way for the foreseeable future. So again, if you haven't already, like the video, subscribe, and hit that bell for the latest notifications. All right, folks, y'all have a great one. Stay safe, think snow, and I'll see you all next time.